Tonight, with the threat of tariffs looming, the Prime Minister and Premiers meet again, and Scott Moe speaks out. Also, a First Nations man in Saskatoon is lobbying the city for a more Indigenous-focused approach to warm-up spaces. Plus, we check the why behind a massive snow fort created by some kids in Saskatoon.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, January 22nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hi there, thanks for joining us. Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Canadian goods is spurring politicians here to come up with possible solutions. One of them includes looking to reduce trade barriers between provinces. Kate McKenna looks at what the leaders might do to protect Canadian consumers and businesses.
Ottawa and the provinces are dealing with a new reality.
The president likes to operate in an environment of chaos.
Chaos about when or if Donald Trump will hit Canadian goods with sweeping tariffs that could kill hundreds of thousands of Canadian jobs. The premiers met virtually today.
We had a really productive meeting with all the premiers and the Prime Minister and a couple federal ministers as well, making sure we have a solid plan.
Trump's now saying tariffs could come February 1st, after first saying it would happen when he took office.
We've been given a reprieve, whether that's a week or 6 weeks. So there is a time for cooler heads to prevail.
Today, their focus was bolstering Canada's economy and improving trade between provinces.
Why is it so hard to send a bottle of wine from one province to another?
We need to look at internal trade that could pick up the GDP, but I've heard numbers anywhere from $50 to $100 billion.
This is low-hanging fruit for us, relatively speaking. We do not have to go through the United States for us to attack these internal trade barriers.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in Washington meeting with lawmakers. She split with her fellow premiers last week, coming out hard against using oil as a bargaining chip in a trade war. She attended today's virtual meeting. After, she posted online, saying the group is moving closer to a consensus on how to handle the U.S. tariff challenge. All premiers agree the best case scenario would be dissuading Donald Trump from implementing these tariffs in the first place. The premiers are planning a trip to Washington in mid-February to make their case to American lawmakers as a team. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Premier Scott Moe's office told us he would speak to the media after speaking first with First Ministers. Now he's sharing his thoughts on the latest threat of tariffs, and as Alexander Kwan reports, Moe's response may show another crack in the Team Canada approach.
Saskatchewan is supportive of those very small, targeted tariffs that are there to change the minds of U.S. decision makers. What we have seen since last week is some of the language change to broad-based dollar-for-dollar tariffs being, counter-tariffs being imposed.
Premier Scott Moe was clear Wednesday. He says he's opposed to any approach that will see the federal government impose dollar-for-dollar tariffs. This after a potential response was floated by Ottawa in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's promise to implement tariffs on Canadian goods.
Well, Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact it?
I think February 1st.
And while Moe said he's in favor of some of the action proposed by the federal government, he also said he'd like to see the tariffs avoided altogether.
Our entire focus on this, as I said, is to de-escalate the entirety of the conversation around tariffs and to refocus on really what I think are some of the opportunities that have been provided by the president. And I call them opportunities and we are taking him up on his comments around border security. That benefits Canadians.
But Moe's statements seem to be at odds with his previous comments about the importance of a unified approach. He says he will take a look at using any power available to negate potential export tariffs on Saskatchewan-made goods. That would include things like egg products or potash.
What we need to do and what I will continue to do as a subnational leader is to engage, yes, alongside our federal government, but to engage also as a province of Saskatchewan with all of any and all contacts that we have with the Trump administration, with governors, with senators, with House representatives. And as I said, I encourage those in the business community to reach out to their business colleagues south of the border.
Opposition leader Carla Beck says the province needs to do its own outreach, possibly through advertising.
There's no doubt that if these tariffs come into place, it's going to be devastating for people across this country, for industry, for our economy, for the costs for consumers, but it is also going to increase costs for people in the U.S.
Mo repeated his often used phrase that we need to take Trump seriously, but not literally. But with the threat of tariffs just over a week away, Mo says he'll do everything in his power to look out for Saskatchewan, even if it puts him at odds with the rest of Canada. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The NDP are criticizing the Saskatchewan Party's record on retaining rural nurses. It comes after the release of new workforce data from the Canadian Institute of Health Information. Liam O'Connor has that story.
Saskatchewan's NDP is worried about a significant drop in rural and remote registered nurses in our province. New data from the Canadian Institute of Health Information shows that from 2018 to 2023, Saskatchewan lost 526 rural and remote registered nurses. It's not just rural and remote areas losing RNs. The 2023 health workforce data also shows 95 fewer registered nurses working in long-term care and 63 fewer psych nurses since 2018.
I hear from folks daily in this office who are trying to access healthcare and don't have access to it and are fed up and are tired of the government being delusional about the state of our province.
Mowat says there needs to be a massive overhaul to the province's recruitment strategy. She says issues like a lack of housing or a massive gap currently in retainment.
We need to make sure that those incentives are attractive, so that the pay is adequate compensation for the work they're doing, that there's good quality of life.
A statement from the Ministry of Health says it's taking action to stabilize and strengthen healthcare services in rural Saskatchewan. It also highlighted an overall increase in registered nurses in the province, despite the declining rural nurse numbers. Saskatchewan Union of Nurses President Tracy Zambori says she's still waiting to get a nurse task force moving on the issue. But she says since the Sask party floated the idea before the 2024 election, there's still been no movement on the province's side to get it up and running.
We need to get a framework built. We need to get some meat on the bones. We need to get some commitments because a nursing task force without teeth is just a make-work project. And registered nurses are done being ignored.
Zambori says, along with housing, one of the biggest issues in retainment is having proper supports for nurses in rural areas. Liam O'Connor, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Starting today, a small number of pharmacists in Saskatchewan have more power with the ability to test and treat ear infections and strep throat. It's part of a pilot project by the province to expand services outside of doctors' offices. 11 pharmacies were selected to offer strep throat and ear infection assessments. Another 37 pharmacies are offering just ear infection testing. In both cases, pharmacies will also be able to prescribe medication for those conditions.
By having pharmacists have an expanded scope of practice, individuals won't necessarily have to go to a doctor. They might not have to sit in an emergency room. They will have options. So it's that entire scope of practice that helps with giving people the option of where they can go get those services, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at a doctor.
If the pilot is successful, the province says it will expand the program to more pharmacies. You can find the current participants on the Saskatchewan College of Pharmacy Professionals website. The University Bridge in Saskatoon has partially reopened after a bridge inspection. Right now, a single lane flows each way. The closure came after an encampment fire under the bridge late Sunday night damaged a sewer main. Sewage also spilled into the river, and crews have been working to clean that up. The city says until the sewer line is repaired, traffic restrictions will remain. It's not clear how long that will take. A Riders fan favorite is heading south for a chance with the NFL. The Saskatchewan Roughriders have announced they released Canadian wide receiver Ajoa Joe to pursue an NFL opportunity. The 23-year-old from Brooks, Alberta, was picked by the Riders in the 7th round of the 2024 CFL draft. He debuted in Week 2 and appeared in 12 games, catching for 20 passes for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that includes his 110-yard breakout performance against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Week 7.
Going for these kind of competitions always helps you in one way or another. Doesn't matter if you lose or win, you have learned something from it, you have made a connection that helps you in future for a long time.
That's Sadyam Singh. His team in Saskatoon was named one of 10 global winners in the 2024 NASA Space Apps Challenge. Teams were recognized from around the world for exceptional innovation and collaboration. Singh's team worked on Asteroid Destroyer and won the Global Connection Award. It honed in on mapping exoplanets based on size, temperature, and distance. The top 10 were picked from almost 10,000 submissions and judged by experts from NASA and space agency partners. Stay with us. We will be back after the break. A First Nations man in Saskatoon is lobbying the city for a more Indigenous-focused approach to warm-up spaces. David Finday says some homeless people feel more comfortable camping outside because the city's shelters are not culturally sensitive. As Helena Mahalik reports, he took his argument to City Hall.
These people, they're down there and they don't have nobody to help them up.
David Finday says until Saskatoon City Councillors experience firsthand how people are living on the streets, they will never be able to grasp the gravity of the situation. He invited councillors to go for a late-night walk through the city with him. Ward 3 Councillor Robert Pierce agreed to go along.
I got goosebumps. He's going to come and see what's really out there. He's going to experience it. He's going to see, feel it, smell it, hear it. And then in his own way, he's going to come back and tell council in his words where they will understand him.
You may remember Finday from his previous efforts to help the city's unhoused. Back in November, Finday set up an encampment for people on the streets to warm up and come smudge in his space. Although his camp was eventually ordered to be taken down, the way that he shared a smudge space and sacred fire with the unhoused is a driving force in his argument to council that more homeless people would access shelters if they were spiritual based.
It's 95% First Nations people that are out there. I believe that they should have First Nations people running it.
Councillor Pierce says he agrees with many of the points Finday raised and that he is looking forward to going out with him to see the situation for himself.
Is this an opportunity to engage with a wider group of homeless people as well as start a relationship with Mr. Finday, who obviously has some great ideas to help solve problems? Absolutely.
Many of the questions Finday posed to council went unanswered, like how much federal funding the city receives will go towards housing, and an update on his requests to set up teepees around the city as culturally appropriate warm-up spaces. Finday also requested to be placed on the city's homelessness committee. Helena Mahalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
A lawsuit over a provincial disability program has been dismissed, but the organization challenging it is already planning an appeal. The Regina Anti-Poverty Ministry argues the Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability program is discriminatory. Recipients are required to withdraw money from their Canada pension plan at the age of 60 instead of 65. That money is then counted against their said benefits. The Anti-Poverty Ministry says this is the only province to do this, and it's not fair.
We know that there are going to be ongoing implications for people that we work with, but we're hoping that this would be heard by the Court of Appeal in the fall and that ultimately we will have a decision in our favor.
A Court of King's Bench judge has disagreed. They ruled the said program does not violate people's equality rights. The federal government wants most provinces and territories to cut this year's allotted spaces for immigration programs for skilled workers by half. As Rafi Boudjikanian reports, it's triggering concerns about its impact on the labor force and the economy.
When it comes to Canada's permanent immigration targets and aligning them to our economic needs, I'm here to announce and confirm that the current plan reduces next year's projections.
That was the federal government last fall announcing cuts were coming. It's now becoming clearer what they will look like.
It's a 50% reduction from where we were last year.
That's across the board for all provinces and territories except Quebec and Nunavut for what are called the provincial nominee programs, targeting skilled workers in healthcare, trades, food services, or even education. Cuts imposed unilaterally, the provinces charge with no consultation.
We know our labor market. We work with our employers on a regular basis. We're engaged with them.
In New Brunswick's case, the province says trades, health, and education alone require them to hire a couple of thousand new workers from the nominee program this year, more than 2/3 of their allocation.
If we want to build houses and apartments, we will need people with trades. This is our reality. And if we don't have them, what will be the impacts?
There's a further stipulation. Ottawa is requiring 3/4 of nominees this year to be people who are already in Canada waiting to become permanent residents. This expert says that further reduces options for Yukon or the Northwest Territories.
They don't have a large enough temporary resident population compared with other parts of Canada. And so this is where I feel the federal government could have been more considerate.
Provincial immigration departments say they're going to start consulting on what they can do to see if Ottawa can reverse at least some reductions. The federal immigration minister says he's willing to show flexibility, but he points out his office has reduced levels across all categories as part of the federal plan for the next 2 years. Rafi Wijikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. This many stars for the wind today. None. Yeah. Zero. Almost prefer the colder temperatures without the winds compared to the warmer temperatures with the wind across the province. And yeah, you're right. We saw those picking up at times really in all areas of the province, especially through south and central. Upwards of 60 kilometers an hour if you were out in places like Swift Current and in west central Saskatchewan, and some gusts actually a little bit stronger than this in Regina and Estevan today, kind of in that 40 to 50 range, especially as we started Wednesday. And that put a bit of a chill to our chillier temperatures that we saw. Cold front moving through the day. So these temperatures were actually hit earlier on Wednesday, and then they just kind of kept dropping back into those minus double digits as we headed through the day. And that cold front that brought those chillier temperatures also bringing through a little bit of some snow activity. We still saw some heavy snow out in the Cypress Hills. The warning for snowfall there, though, has come to an end. But I think we are in store for a little bit more snowfall through the province over these next 24 to 48 hours. High pressure is what's going to put an end to that snow in the Cypress Hills. But as that moves away, cloud cover builds back in for many areas. And by the starting your day tomorrow, I think we're already going to be seeing some snow up in far northwestern sections around places like Buffalo Narrows, La Loche, Uranium City. That moves eastward through the north into the afternoon. South and central, that same line of snow is going to start moving from northwest to southeast as we get kind of mid-afternoon Thursday. And then by the evening hours, Regina, Yorkton, that's when we start to see that. And then the Weyburn-Estevan area kind of overnight as we get into Friday. The remnants of that system, though, moving through Friday, and I think we'll continue to see maybe another centimeter or two before high pressure moves in to clear things out as we head into the weekend. So for the north, which will probably bear the brunt from this system, probably upwards of maybe 6-7 centimeters of snow at the most for many areas with this. South and central, I don't think it's going to be quite as much as that band moves through the day. Maybe 2 to 4 centimeters generally, I think, in most areas. But we'll have to be aware of a little bit of some blowing snow once again as those winds are going to start to pick up 40 to 60 kilometers an hour as we head through the day. And especially Friday, as the remnants of that system move through, that's when we're going to see those breezes really pick up, including in Regina. So I put 2 to 4 centimeters of snow for the Queen City. Temperatures staying above average the next couple of days. Will drop back to about seasonal for Saturday, but there comes the sunshine and warmer temperatures for the beginning of next week, albeit with some wind returning as we near the freezing mark. Saskatoon, again, generally 2 to 4 centimeters, I think, here. A little bit on the warmer side, and then we get into Saturday where we see a bit of a drop in temperature with that high pressure moving in, but the winds calm down and the skies clear as we head into next week. And those overnight lows, Sam, for this time of year should be down around minus 20, but we have some really nice single-digit temperatures into next week. Something to look forward to. It is indeed, yes. All right. Thanks, Ethan. You bet. Big news from the Calgary Zoo. Their 4-year-old female Malayan tapir is expecting. If all goes well, this will be the first offspring for Mama and her partner, and a big deal for the endangered species. She's expected to give birth between mid-July and mid-August, and the zoo has dubbed it Watermelon Watch YYC because the babies are marked like watermelons. We'll be back after the break. It's a winter sight that isn't very common anymore. Giant snow forts, but not in Saskatoon, where 2 boys have embraced the cold, headed outside, and built a giant fort in their front yard.
Pile up snow, and then you start digging it out, and then all the snow that you take from the inside, you pile it back on top. And then you dig that out and pile it back on top, and dig that out and pile it back on top, and then you just keep doing it until it's big enough. My brother always thought it would be fun to build something like this, so he's always made them, but then we started making them a lot bigger.
As a kid myself, we would chop up snowdrifts into blocks, and then we would block them up into forts, and so I had started doing that with them when they were really little, and it's just kind of morphed into their own design, and I think they just build. As they build, they just develop their own idea.
I try to do it every year, but last year I wasn't able to because we got snow in beginning of February and then it melted.
We've really tried to make it just a part of our lifestyle and just how we are as a family, and I think we're all happier outside.
And my parents never gave me a video game console or anything, so it just kind of forces me to go outside and use my brain. It's just nice to be outside, feeling the elements. And I push myself to do stuff that most people don't do.
More kids outside, please, Ethan. And with the weather, it's doable.
Yeah, exactly. We got more snow on the way, and hey, I'm impressed by that tiny little fire they got going there too. Very nice. Temperatures tonight dropping back into the mid-minus teens. That snow reaching south and central as we get through the day Thursday. In the north, though, places like Uranium City, La Loche, that starts moving in as we get to about 5 a.m. or so Thursday morning. But temperatures, these are, normally daytime highs that we see in the north for this time of year, so very nice nighttime temperatures. Snow moving in from west to east as we get through the day Thursday into northern Saskatchewan, reaching that eastern border by a kind of mid-afternoon or so. I think it'll be out of there by the evening. For south and central, again, I think it's by the noon hour we start to see that creep into the Battlefords and Meadow Lake area, getting into Saskatoon and Prince Albert by the mid-afternoon, and then Regina or so probably by those kind of later evening hours or later afternoon hours, early evening hours, and we'll see temperatures kind of bump up a little bit, thankfully, Sam, with that snow moving in.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it from us. For more news anytime, head to cbc.ca/Sask or go subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.